So I'm here in Japan with my friend Rebecca.
Yo.
And we have been interns in Japan this summer. And this is actually her last day.
No, don't say that.
Right?
Sad. But it's been a really good summer.
Oh, yeah. So good. The Lord has literally done so many cool things. And I can't wait to tell you about some of them. One of the coolest things was that I got to meet Rebecca. And I feel like she has so many different, like, artistic things that she does. I'll let her introduce herself.
So this is gross, I'm a senior college student, wow, going into my 4th year studying marketing at Cedarville University with a minor in biblical studies. And so I've been a radio DJ, I lift weights, and I do just about every form of creating possible. So I was telling this to one of our friends earlier today, Anna, but she was like, man, you have so many different things you do. And the best way I can describe it is I get bored really easily. And so
done.
I just keep picking up different hobbies. So I'm a jack of all trades, but master of none.
That's a complete lie.
But
I literally just saw your photography exhibition.
But the saying goes on, but a master of some is better than none. Okay, so it's a cool saying.
There we go.
But I do photography. I'm working on a children's picture book right now. I play guitar. I write songs and sing, and I do some poetry. So yeah, just pretty much anything under the sun, I'm game to try.
That is so cool.
But yeah, so my main function this summer in Tokyo and Nagoya has been either as a marketer helping with event planning and social media type things, or as a photographer.
Shashinka!
So a few days ago, Anna and I held a very avant-garde event where you had painted with your feet last year while dancing.
Yeah.
And so you did that again, and then I took the painting you did last year and painted over it, all in the midst of one of my photography exhibitions.
And one of my dance performances.
Yeah.
It was the coolest, like, I don't know, that was one of the coolest things to get to do with you, though, because, I don't know, I feel like it was such a clear representation of the gospel, and then we got to explain that after. Like, we got to give a brief introduction to it, and then do the performance, and then everyone was like, okay, what the heck did you just do?
Me too.
But then we got to talk about it, so that was fun.
Yeah, that was an awesome part.
Well, as a photographer, because that was one of your exhibitions, what are some things that capture your eye?
So mostly whenever I go to a place to photograph, because I primarily do street photography or any sort of like travel documentation, I like to capture the essence of a place, which I had said when we did a performance at, I'm going to butcher the name, nope, the college.
Oh, Aoyama Gakuin?
Aoyama Gakuin?
Aoyama Gakuin.
Yeah, that one.
The Blue Mountain.
Yeah, Blue Mountain. When we had talked at this university, I had said one of my favorite parts about photography and in relation to God is that as a photographer, you are capturing one single shutter click in time, one moment, and it's frozen. Okay, I know iPhones have the live photo feature, but we're not touching that. We're not talking about that right now. But when you think about like a video game, a CPU only has so much like actions per second that it can do. So if you have a scene that has like raindrops and the player's moving and this and that, a computer can only handle so many of those actions at a time. But then when you think about the vastness of the world and how many photos you have in your iPhone library because you're a selfie queen, or like
you're done,
or like think of how many different rainstorms there are around the world, and then how many raindrops are in each one, and each drop ripples and has a path, or like how many bugs are there and animals and people, and there's just so much happening in the world, in the universe, because we don't even know the ends of the earth yet.
Right.
And God is making that happen. It's in the palm of his hand, that no computer that we've made as humans so far can handle that level of computing. And so as photography, a moment happens and then it's gone. And so when you take a picture, I find beauty in something as small as taking a picture of a bug or a flower or a person or, a dance movement, a ballet jump, because you're capturing that moment when in real life, once it happens, it's gone.
That is like the coolest thing I've ever heard.
That's way better than I said it at our presentation.
Yeah, I'm saving that one. That's so cool. I love the moments that you capture too. There's one in specific, one in particular from your exhibition that I think you said the guy posed for you.
Oh, that's funny. It's funny you like the pictures in my exhibition because over half of them are of you.
Okay, but this one was not of me, and I really liked it.
True. So this one picture, I was just south of Ueno Park in Tokyo. I forget what the area is called, but it's a lot of street shopping, very urban looking. No, not Harajuku. It's different. It's much more north in Tokyo.
Wakanai.
And I don't know if you ever went. This other tourist kind of was, I could tell on my periphery, he was standing behind me. And I was taking a picture down the street, and I wanted to capture, like, quick shutter of, like, a person walking on the crosswalk or a bike or something. And next thing I know, this guy walks up in front of me, like, exactly where he needed to be. Like, he must have been looking at my camera and figured out the angle, because then he stood there, and he's got, like, highlighter pink hair. And he posed perfectly for, like, a solid 2 minutes, and then, like, kept walking and just, like, never talked to me, never said anything. But he had to have known that I was taking a picture, and he had to have realized that was exactly where he needed to pose.
Was he Nihonjin or Gaijin?
Gaijin.
Gaijin, so he's a foreigner.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So funny.
Well, okay, I have another question about, like, beauty and, like, photography and what you like. Like, this podcast, I originally started it to talk about, like, artists, and I just wanted to ask my friends and artists what beauty they saw in their daily lives and what purpose it has. So for you, you're a photographer, you capture moments of beauty, obviously, but maybe in your day-to-day life and, like, more personal life, what is the purpose of beauty for you?
I think the Ghibli films do a really good job of this, because Hayao Miyazaki, his whole point of making the kind of films he does is he wants to teach children that life is worth living, no matter how hard or how mundane it may seem. Because if you look at a Ghibli's film, there's a cozy quality to them. And it could be walking through a garden, or the way that your room is super cluttered, but it's personalized to you. And it just takes the small moments of life that make it worth living. And so in a lot of, like, especially my past life as a radio DJ, I've had shows focused on the mundane moments of life, living in the present moment, because so often depression lives in the past when we reflect on what we've done with regret, but anxiety lives in the future because we worry about our plans. And
That's
so
actually so cool,
isn't it? The present is where God is, because the present moment is what God has given us, because the past is gone, it's happened, it's what God has ordained to happen, and the future is not yet promised. So I mean, I think of Matthew 6:33 and 34, seek the quality of God. Seek these things in his righteousness, and these qualities of God will be added to you. And don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Sufficient for the day is its own troubles. So that's kind of my life verse of I'm a kind of person that focuses on, okay, I'm going to get this job, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to travel here, and this is the kind of life I want to have. But then I miss the moment. I miss it even though I'm living it. And so photography, it captures that moment right now, because you can't take a picture in the present, or you can't take a picture in the past, and you can't take a picture in the future. It has to be right now. And then I think really any of my different creative hobbies, they happen now, and they happen with the person that I am, not the person I was or the person I will be. It's my present self's expression. And so I can look back on my past drawings or my past songs, and it takes me back of, wow, like, that's how I felt, that's who I was, that's how I saw life. And then as I develop my art crafts, my art forms and different crafts, then I can see how my process of sanctification, who I'm becoming, I'm becoming more like Jesus, and I can see that happening.
It's so beautiful how, like, the hardest parts of our lives, like, end up making us need God, and those are the parts where God touches us and heals us, and, like, our broken parts become so beautiful. But, like, a lot of the time, no one ever sees those parts of who you are, like, when you meet, like, say, a stranger.
Yeah.
Like, they never see those hidden parts. They only see the moment. They only see what you show them too. And so, I don't know, something that struck me is, like, we've talked a lot about, like, our lives, is how, like, people will never know just by looking at you the deepest parts of your lives. But how can knowing this help us to love others well?
They won't know our lives, plural. I'm leading multiple lives. Yeah, okay. Well, you already know this, but the children's book that I'm writing is about my sister with severe disability that passed away in February. And so very, very often have I found myself, especially this past year, I carry such weight in my life and in who I am and how I grew up that people don't know just by looking at me. And some of my good friends still don't know, because it is impossible for another human being, no matter how close, no matter how much they love you, they will never fully know you. Only God will know completely, unconditionally who you are, and he will know you better than you know yourself, which is why hard things in life happen and you don't understand. It's because God knows already how you will react, because he knows you more deeply and understands how that will shape you as a person. And so when you look at another human being, and when I look at another human being, we only see a sliver. We see a photograph in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that is their life. Because we're noticing one moment, one way their hair looks, one way they stand, one mistake they made. We'll never see the full development of who they have been and who they will be and who they are. We only see superficially or hear one opinion. I mean, how many times a week do you change what your favorite food is?
Like,
so often.
Every 5 seconds.
Exactly. And so who knows if the person that meets Anna Gardner today will meet the one that likes bibimbap, or will meet the one that likes, like, Italian food. Like, we don't know.
Yeah.
And so I think when you meet a new person, or even when you think about your parents or your siblings or your best friend, and you're having a difficult moment with them, remember it's their first time living life too. They're figuring everything out for the first time as well, just like you are. And that no matter how close a relationship you have with them, you're not them. You're not in their head, and you're not God. And so you cannot see everything that they're carrying in that moment.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a healthy dose of grace that should be allocated to them.
That's, like, so true. That's so true. I think I am definitely a culprit of, I do not give grace to people when I don't know their lives. And so, I don't know, meeting you has been so interesting, because your view on life is so different from a lot of people that I know. And I feel like just some things that you've said have been so, like, convicting in my own life, and made me think of, like, I'm sure so many people have stories that they have never told me, and I've just treated them like the person that I know them to be, not the person that they really are, because I can never know the person that they really are. Not in this world. I mean, maybe in heaven we'll see them face to face too.
Yeah.
But now we see in part. And so I think you have encouraged me to, like, see people as people, like, imperfect but beautiful people who are children of God. So anyway,
but I think there's also beauty in the discovery, and that you can find beauty in who a person is by learning about them over time.
Yeah.
And you'll never finish that journey in this life, but I once saw a Reddit feed that was like, I want a slow love. And so the best kind of romance is the kind where I want to know all your hopes and dreams, the way you think, your favorite foods. Like, I want to know every single detail about you, but I don't want to know it today. I want to learn it more and more each and every day until I get as close to fully knowing you as I can in this life. And I think that's what God wants of us.
Yeah.
Because God, the thing he wants the most in all of creation, I was going to say in this world, but he's bigger than the world. I think the thing God reveals to us is that he wants us to know him. And so some people look at the Bible and they look at Christianity and they see a big bad God with so many rules that doesn't want us to have any fun. And that it could not be any further from the truth.
So true.
Because the first thing God tells us in the Bible is that he spoke and he created the world. And that his word was trustworthy, because his ability to speak, quote unquote speak, was so powerful that it created existence itself.
Right.
And that same God created the world so that we could be fruitful and multiply, that we could continue the work that he started and enjoy life. And I think even though we screwed it up, even though humans ruined it, God still had a plan for us to eventually reconnect with him, to be able to reach that state of let me enjoy you enjoying what I've given you, so that in heaven we can continue the Eden-like before the fall, let's create, let's live life together forever and learn about each other. And God fully knows us because he's perfect. And so our lives are difficult, but each step along the way is to bring us closer to him.
That's so beautiful. I think it's so cool how, like, obviously we can't know each other, but we also can't know God fully. And so every step that we take that teaches us more about God, teaches us how to worship him better and how to love him better, just like learning how to love someone in real life. I mean, it's all in real life, but you know what I mean? Like, God isn't a person, but when we learn to love people, it's a little bit of an image for learning more about God. Mm-hmm. And as we learn more about God, we can love him.
It's like looking at an artist's work. When you look at pottery or you look at a painting, you're seeing a piece of the artist.
Yeah.
But you will never look at that painting or that pot as long as the artist did, because they formed it and reformed it and painted it and changed the shape and the color, and they've spent so much time staring at it that you could sit in the museum all day, but you'll never know it as deeply as God knows us.
That's so cool. I love that picture. It's gonna live rent-free in my brain now. Just thanks for that. And okay, just curious, when you've like gone through hard times, like, what are some of the things that you think of? What are some Bible verses that like have really pulled you through?
I think above all, the idea that God is always present, even if you can't see him, because the entire book of Esther happens without God's name ever mentioned.
Right.
Fun fact. And it's not a book about, wow, look at this powerful woman. It's about the fact that God was still in the picture even when you couldn't see him. And so I think dealing with that, and then Genesis 50:20, the story of Joseph, his big one-liner of you meant it for evil but God meant it for good, so that many people would live. And just the thought that Joseph had everything taken from him, every relationship broken, sold into slavery, his family abandoned him, and yet he remained faithful in his day-to-day, no matter how hard it was. And God made something truly wonderful out of that, saved his family, saved the lineage that would ultimately get to Jesus, that would ultimately save the world. And so really, if you look at the Bible from the meta-narrative, from the whole perspective, that, we screwed up the Garden of Eden, we screwed up perfection. And from the get-go, like, Jesus was not a backup plan. From the initial fall, God promised in Genesis 3:15, like, I'm going to save a savior through the seed of Eve. One of her descendants is going to crush Satan's head, and death will be defeated. We'll live together again. And you see that promise repeated over and over and over, that no matter, Moses' inability to speak and to wanting to stand up for his people, and Abraham's doubt, and Sarah laughing that, no, I'm not going to have a son, and, Abraham screwing up and losing Sarah, and God is protecting from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob and through the judges all through the story of the Bible, you have all these genealogies that you're like, what is the point? The point is that God is faithful, and he will always be faithful, and he protects that Genesis 3:15 promise until you get to Matthew and the birth of Jesus, and Jesus remains true to the purpose that he's been given to save humanity all the way, and we can trust that in Revelation, when we get there, Jesus is still going to be faithful. God is still faithful to us to have life with him again. And so I think that promise of through hard times, through the moments when you don't want to create, when you don't feel like life is worth living, know that God is faithful, and that the dark times, like a good painting has to have the shadows. You cannot have a painting of just the sun, like just white. What's the point in that? Argue with me on that if you like abstract art.
We've seen some of that too.
But you have to have the contrast, because any good story has good versus evil. Any good story has the underdog. We love that as humans. And so,
do you think that's because that's our story?
I think, yeah, we're so pitted against each other. We're pitted against evil. We feel that innate struggle of Satan in this world, because this is his kingdom, this life. And so we're drawn to light. But our stories, God's glory becomes more wonderful, more perfect than our weakness. We bring the dark, like the painting that I painted over. You had the black. And God paints over that. He brings the light. He brings the color. And so really, if I had advice for the audience, I'd just say, like, hang in there. Ganbate. Like, you got this.
Ganbatte ne.
Because it might be dark, it might be hard, or you might be on a mountaintop. And if so, you're probably about to go into a valley, because that's how life goes. And just know that it's for God's glory. And it is ultimately for good. And if you don't know God, then if it were me, I wouldn't know what to do, because I've been there. I've been there with life without God, and it was dark and it was hopeless. And so I pray that God shows you hope, and that you can see the hands that are holding this giant, creative, immense, amazing world that no CPU could process.
Bring it all back to the
yeah, I know, right?
The CPU processor ain't got nothing on God.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Put that on a t-shirt. Ego jouzu ne. Well, thank you so much for sharing your advice and stories. I am so grateful for you being willing to do this with me on your last night in Japan.
It's crazy.
So crazy. And as you go back, is there any way that our listeners could be praying for you in the coming weeks and months ahead?
Yeah, so it's my senior year, which is really weird to say. I never thought that I would make it to adulthood, because me being an adult just sounds like an oxymoron. But now it's like, oh, okay, here we are. I need to find a job. I need to find a livelihood. And I have, for so many years, always been like, I'm going to do this, and my life's going to look like that, and it's going to be great. But in recent years, I've just kind of let go of, not ambition, but the plans that I had for my life. And I'm just kind of letting go and letting God. So
God's got better plans anyway.
I know, right? So maybe just prayers for peace of mind in the next phase of life, being faithful in the moment and not always thinking about the future. But Proverbs says that plans are still good, and there's wisdom in making plans, so that I can find a job, and that I feel it's where God wants me.
And hopefully you come back to Japan.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I come back as a missionary.
Well, we'll definitely be praying, and I'm so excited to see where God leads you. I feel like there's so many paths you could go down, but I know that he has the right one, like the best one, whatever it is. He has it already picked out for you, and I can't wait to find out what that is.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you so much, and thank you to all of our listeners again for listening. The point of this podcast is literally never to be famous or anything, just to reach the random people that needed to hear this. So I hope it encourages you, and I hope you just know that you are loved by God, and that is everything.
Amen. Matane.
Matane, Jane!